either me or this wallpaper have to go. Last period we were talking about this, second period was talking about this, and someone was asking whether or not this was actually a true thing. Or like when we're talking about about who we really are. Because we tend to think like when you're at home, you're one person, when you're at school, you're another person, when you're at work, you could still be a third person. And so the question is, which of those people are you? Who's the real you and who's the fake you? And in terms, yeah.
I feel like, what I was thinking about that, I feel like you can have so many personalities, I feel like you're all you at one point.
Yeah, you could be a million different people. Yeah, and it can change, even in the course of, I don't know, have you ever, I asked the question like I don't know the answer to it, but have you ever been like in a somewhere and you're in a great mood and all of a sudden like a couple of seconds later you're completely down and you have no idea why, and you're just like going up and down bipolar. I mean, hell, it happens in the course of a class. It happens in the course of me talking to you guys. I go, yeah, you're right. I don't even know which Stephen you're gonna get. Much less can you possibly know. Which of those is the real me? Yeah. Yes. Yes. When you're with your friends and you behave one way, and then you're with your family, you behave in another way, and you're at work, you behave in another way. Which of those is the real you? Yes. Yes. But that can also be scary, because that means that however it is that you're behaving, that is the real you. If you hate your job and you hate your boss, and you go to work and your boss asks you, how you doing today? And you're like, I'm great, man. I know, I just love being here. And inside you just hate being there. That is the real you. The real you in that context is fake. In other words, the real you is a liar. The real you is a manipulator. Why? Probably because you're trying to get something out of it. Maybe you want better hours, or you want a promotion, or you just don't want to have to deal with the fallout of telling the truth. And that's true about a lot of us. Like, we just don't want to have to deal with the fallout of telling the truth. We don't like the consequences of these things. And these two things, judgment and consequences, really are pretty closely connected. In other words, we don't like to have to, if we tell the truth, we don't want to have to suffer for it. If we tell our boss how we really feel about them, we don't want to get fired. So are you being fake? Not in a, I guess not in a strict sense. You're just being who you are. But unfortunately, who you are in that context is not a good person. What am I supposed to do? Tell them I hate them? I don't know. Depends on how committed you are to telling the truth. I don't know if any of you have ever been so angry that you've punched a wall. And you've just been like, oh my God, this isn't me. Why would I do that? I got news for you. Is your fist hurting? Then you are in fact the one who punched the wall. That is you. That's you under those circumstances, under those conditions, with that attitude. All of that situation together, that's who you are. Oh, but one thing doesn't define you. True. No word defines any word. It takes a group of words to define any word. Look in the dictionary. No word is defined by one word. But we are defined by a sentence, by a collection of words. And we're all defined by the things that we collectively do. We can be all of these things. We can be a million different people from one day to the next. But that's all you. But that's good. That's good, because now you know something really important about yourself. If you, like I said, you punch a wall, you get angry, and you can say, oh my God, this is not me. I would never do this. Yeah, you would, man, because you did. Limes don't come from apple trees. If an action came out of you, it only came out of you because it was in you in the first place. But again, that's good, because now you know. I am the person that if I get to this point, that's the line right there. Once I get past that point, I lose all control. So now you know that about yourself. Maybe then in the future, you'll stop before you get past that line. Maybe if you're arguing with somebody who makes you so angry that you cross that line, now you can tell them, listen, I want to have this conversation with you, but we got to stop, man, right now, because I'm too angry. It's not going to go well for either of us. And you still might get that person who's like, no, but we need to talk about this right now. No, but the thing is that if we continue this, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to punch a wall or something. And it's hard under those circumstances to be able to pull your reason together to say that. But you might find that it's necessary. And then, of course, hopefully you'll find that as you develop strategies, the line is going to be The line's not going to be a permanent thing. Hopefully it's going to be moving further and further away from you, so that the line at which you finally snap and do something that's not characteristic of you is, you know, way over there by the gym somewhere, so you never actually approach it. Hopefully. But all of those things are us. The question is going to be, how much of each of these personalities do you want to be known by and to bleed into others? I'm sure you've all seen things like this, these Venn diagrams. And so maybe this is like your behavior with your friends. Maybe this is our behavior with our families. Maybe this is our behavior at work, at our job. I know this is our behavior with strangers. So there's parts of our personality that are going to overlap. Now, the truth is that this is all you. But there are parts of your behaviors that are overlapping. So this is you in every circumstance. So the question is going to be, which of these things do you want to be under all circumstances at all times? Hopefully the core of your personality is going to be something good. Hopefully it's something that you want to be. And then hopefully the more kind of comfortable you get with that core, maybe you can start to expand that core, so that eventually, I mean, it's a heck of a task, but hopefully at some point maybe they all overlap, so that you're the same person with all of those different groups. Probably not, because you're going to want to have some differences. I mean, let's face it, man, some of the things that you say to your friends, you just can't say them to family, because you know your moms and you probably have a very idealized image. I mean, I get emails sometimes or I'll have parent conferences once in a very great while. I try to avoid them, but I'll find out. Like, good example. I think I told you I have an administrative credential, so I used to fill in as an AP. So when the APs would be absent, I used to fill in. And there was this mom who came in one time, and she was irate because something had happened with her daughter, and her daughter had gotten into a confrontation. And she was telling me about how good of a person her daughter is, and how she's, you know, innocent. I mean, her daughter was a student of mine, and so I was trying to like draw that distinction between like, I've seen some things, you know, and I've heard some things, of course, but of course whatever you hear is not necessarily the truth. In fact, it rarely ever is the truth. But her mom essentially was saying that there were some kids in one of her class that were a bad influence on her. I happen to know that her daughter was in fact the bad influence, not the person being influenced. And so she wanted to move her daughter, long story. So I said, yeah, no problem, I understand. You know, you have to protect your kids and you don't want them to be corrupted. And she said, yeah. So I think I had her like I can't remember if it was a 11th or 12th grade class, but I knew that she was like 16. So I asked her mom about the tattoo that she got, and I asked her if they, you know, when she took her to get it. Did her mom know about the tattoo? Her mom did not know about the tattoo. Her mom didn't know about the shirts that she would wear that would display the tattoo. Follow? She had a tattoo over here, and her mom was convinced that she always dressed conservatively. So I said, let's have some fun. I won't ignore this. I sent out a call slip for her. She didn't know her mom was there. And then she came to the office, and her mom got to find out about that. Guess who was to blame? Me. Somehow, some way, she still complained, because it messed up this worldview of hers. And so then, of course, it gave her an opportunity to interact with the daughter. My point was that I was just trying to, you know, be honest about what was going on with everybody. Because most of the time that actually calms people down when we kind of get a little bit of humility in our life, and we realize that maybe we were off about some things and wrong about some things. It's a good thing to have. It gives us perspective. So, but also some of the ways that you talk to your family are ways you never would talk to your boss at work. You know, the ways that you talk to fill in the blank, they're never going to overlap perfectly. But the more they overlap, the less you have to worry about things. You know? Does that make any sense? You can think of yourself like an iceberg. That's my best drawing of an iceberg. You've seen those pictures of icebergs where it's like, there's just like a tip of the iceberg that's above the water, and whatever you see, you can imagine how much bigger it is underneath the water. You've seen those pictures before? You can think of yourself this way, that there's a persona, which is what it is that you show the world. This is the mask that you wear, that you show the world. Various forms of it, like I said, those overlapping circles. Maybe you show the world that you're happy, kind, confident, or depressed, miserable, or whatever it is that you show the world. This is the mask that you wear. But then there's this whole other part underneath you, which is referred to as your shadow. So you've got the persona, and you've got the shadow. And this comes from a psychologist named Carl Jung. I don't remember if we've had something from him before. If we haven't had a quote from him yet, we will. I think we have a couple coming up if we haven't already. Now the shadow is all the stuff that you don't show the world for various reasons. Those intrusive thoughts that you have, that you keep to yourself, that would be in the shadow. These are the parts that you just don't want to show the world. By the way, it isn't just those things. Like for example, if you're, you have homicidal tendencies, you would probably keep that in your shadow as well. But also, if you're just insecure, you might keep that in your shadow. If you have, if you're bitterly depressed, but you don't ever tell anybody, that's what you keep in your shadow. So there are these two parts of you that are always existing. Again, the part you show the world, and the part that you keep hidden. In some cases, you know what these things are consciously. In some cases, it's unconscious or subconscious. You aren't really aware that you're hiding these things because you haven't come to grips with the fact that you are these things. That would be something like the person who punches walls when they get angry before it happens the first time. It was already down there. You just weren't familiar with it. And so what ends up happening is that thing then bubbles up over, and now you've got this conflict between the shadow that you were really hoping to keep hidden, and then the persona, which is trying really, really hard to suppress that shadow thing that comes out. But the thing is that you are both of those. You're the shadow and you're the persona. And what causes a lot of our mental distress, our mental health problems, is that tension between the shadow and the persona. Because eventually what happens if you try to suppress that shadow, well, like anything else that you press down, it's going to burst open. That's when we act out in dramatic ways. And we say, oh my God, that's not me. Yeah, it is you. It is you. And the more that you can come to grips with who you really are, the more you can control who you really are. And you can shape who you really are. And so the ultimate hope with something like this is that when those bits of your shadow show up, rather than suppress them or chase them away, you can interview them. Find out what it is that's got you feeling that way. Find out, kind of acknowledge it about yourself. It doesn't necessarily mean to embrace it, but it means to acknowledge these things about yourself because you are all of these things. And then once that happens, you can now start to integrate those two parts of yourself. And then which of these things are you? The answer to that question is yes. But this is a really hard thing to let go of. This is why there's a face that we show the world, and this is our safe space up here. But then some people, very few select people, get to see these things down here. And then of course we might have layers there. So in other words, what is our boss? Our boss sees that. Our teacher sees that. And then you've got some friends maybe, some close friends, and then they're allowed to see that depth of you. And then maybe you've got a couple of really close friends, and then they get to see that depth of you. But then there's that whole thing at the bottom which you don't really show to anybody, perhaps. Because we're afraid if people see this, they're not going to accept us for who we are. And that goes back to those 36 questions I was talking about last time. That the point of those questions is to reveal more of these things about yourself to a person who's receiving them without judgment, acceptance, and is giving them back to you. Well, here's a terrible thing about me too. Not terrible, but a thing that we would normally not tell a person. And then of course you got this bottom part here, which is probably reserved for, in good cases, maybe like a close spouse or like an absolute lifelong best friend. But there's a danger there. Because what if you let people in, like last period somebody mentioned that, well, what if I let people in to this level down here, the really scary stuff, and then they use it against me later, because now they know something about me. That can happen, yeah. That can happen. You see people who go through like a really bitter divorce. Think about if you feel like somebody has wronged you terribly and you know something really horrible about them, and you can always be sitting there thinking like, I could expose you, I could destroy you. Could you? Yeah. Yeah, and the fact that you're thinking about doing that, by the way, is exposing something about your shadow as well. Or maybe you're that person who says, yeah, this person's trying to destroy me right now, and I could destroy them, but I don't even have a desire to. I don't have an interest. I'm not even tempted to do it. And that tells you about the depth of your shadow versus somebody else's. People who are mostly shadow and really deep and dark down in here, man, that's a lot of work, dude. That's a lot of work. But that's how you become a whole person. You take both parts of yourself and you integrate them together. By the way, you see this play out in comic books. Here's a good question: is Batman? Is Batman who is Bruce Wayne and who's Batman? Is this Bruce Wayne and is this Batman, or is that Batman and that's Bruce Wayne? In other words, is Batman the persona, or is he the shadow? Is Bruce Wayne the persona or the shadow? Now you can see this, by the way, play out. Some of you guys saw, I'm sure saw Endgame, I think it was. And there's a perfect example of that. You got Bruce Banner, who's the scientist, 7 PhDs and all that. And then who does he become when he gets angry? The Hulk, yeah. This is all Hulk down here, man. Hulk is that shadow. This is the face he shows the world as the scientist, and then there's all those dark things underneath him. And then finally in Endgame, he puts the two together. He assimilates the two together. And then he's walking around in the body of Hulk, but he's talking through the voice of Bruce Banner. That's a person who's now completely comfortable with themselves and fully integrated. And that's a Jungian type, by the way. That character is based off of Carl Jung stuff, the Jungian types. So hopefully that's what you can become. You can become the Hulk, become the monster that you are, combined with the persona that you are, all the characteristics that you want to portray, and use the characteristics that you want to portray to control the other things. And then use them, because they're all part of you. You can use them when you need to use them. Keep them suppressed when you don't want to use them, not suppressed, but keep them in control when you don't want to use them. But at some point, everybody has to become the monster, maybe. At some point, everybody has to be the persona. But at least then you have a choice about what you're going to be. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?